Welcome back to Pragmagilism, the podcast where we cut through rigid frameworks and focus on what actually works. I'm Ross, and today we're tackling a bold question. Is Agile dead? I don't know. I have a thought, and my thought is that Agile as a concept, that's not going anywhere. The principles that we all believe in, like adaptability, collaboration, focusing on value, those things are timeless. But the business of Agile, the frameworks, the certifications, the transformations, that might be on its last legs. So today we're going to dive into it. How Agile dogma may be holding practitioners back, why businesses are moving beyond Agile transformations, and what the next wave looks like for Agile practitioners to stay relevant. Agile has become an industry of itself, complete with certification programs, consultants, and frameworks. But as businesses evolve, Agile practitioners risk irrelevance if they cling to the belief in their framework or the belief in their certification instead of adapting to the needs of the business. Agile, it's really not about whether Agile is dying or not. It's about moving beyond frameworks and focusing on what problems we really need to solve as practitioners. I think this is a really important thing because I have been around folks who believe in a framework and they will try to get that framework into a problem. They will create a problem to use that framework. And that's great. That belief in something is great. When we over-believe on the specific rules, that's where we start to disconnect with folks. And really, the connection of an Agile practitioner or a coach is really what's more important. We need to connect with our team, and they need to trust us. And if we just walk around with a hammer looking for nails, they're not going to trust us. So what's the problem with that Agile dogma? Here's where Agile starts to go wrong. We focus too much on the rules, the frameworks, the rituals, and we forget the basic principles behind Agile. Framework overload is a real problem that I've seen in more than one spot. Maybe a place starts with safe, does their own thing, brings in Silicon Valley product folks, brings in less, but it's all in a condensed timeline where you can't really learn the first thing before you're on to the second thing. This is one of those things where I think that as management shifts around and as people try to get faster to market or whatever problem they're trying to solve, they believe that somebody has a different idea, and that different idea creates change fatigue for the folks that are actually doing the work. Agile isn't about finding the right framework and fitting into it. It's about solving problems. It's about learning through mistakes and adapting in an incremental way, not just, changing out one framework and slapping in another one. Ceremony over substance is another one of these problems that a lot of our Agile practitioners focus too much of their time and attention on. We're putting too much emphasis on the meetings themselves, the stand-ups, the retros, the backlog refinement, instead of delivering the outcomes. When we say we need to have backlog refinement, but we don't have backlog to refine, we're really just wasting people's time. If a stand-up devolves into a status update that nobody listens to because we're not really working on it as a team, we're spread across all different things just to try to get as much done as possible, that's not a stand-up anymore. It's just a check-in. And we don't need those. We really need to focus on how do we use these meetings to deliver the outcomes, and if we're not using them to deliver the outcomes, why are we having them? Manifesto misuse. Not just the manifesto, any one of the great texts of the Agiles, right? Manifesto, just saying it. We talked about the manifesto in the last episode, so I'm going to say the Scrum Guide. Just because something's in the Scrum Guide and you're technically not doing Scrum if you break that rule, does it matter? If you're just shouting out a principle and calling out the wrong thing that we're doing in accordance with some document, you're not focused on what do these people need to get stuff into the hands of the customer. You're focused on making sure that they're doing the thing the way that it's written down. And that's not always important, especially in knowledge work. If we were on a factory line and there's a set of instructions to assemble a car, that's a different thing. We want those brakes to work. If we skip a stand-up because everybody's really swarming and trying to get a problem solved, that's not a big deal. The last main problem that I see with a lot of practitioners right now is a one-size-fits-all solution. We've hinted at this. You bring your framework in, you slap it down on the table, you get everybody certified and trained up, and it doesn't solve the actual problem that's going on. Sometimes the problem isn't organizationally constructed. Sometimes the problems aren't because our scrum masters are assigned to a team instead of assigned to level up. When the solution doesn't fit the problem, you're doing exactly what we try to coach out of. We're not being agile. We're being rigid. We really need to say, what tools out of all these different toolboxes do we need to fix this one problem that we're looking at now? It could be PI planning from Scaled Agile. It could be the product structure from Less. It could be the way that Silicon Valley Product Group talks about writing epics, features, and stories. We can use all those things, bring them together, and really help a team solve a problem. At a large enterprise I was recently with, the approach to agility became a revolving door of Agile frameworks. It was like management theater. Everything was wrapped in a brand of internal creativity, but in reality, it was just a chaotic revolution of playbooks. Over a few years, SAFe, SVPG, Less had all had their mark on the organization at some point. And every time a new practitioner with a new set of certifications came in, the principles and the roles and the responsibilities and the workflow and everything in the playbook changed. And with every framework and change to that playbook, a flood of zealots came into the mix who were determined to make sure that the teams followed and were indoctrinated into these scriptures of those certifications. The toll on everyone was enormous. The vision of agility kept shifting, and each time a team figured out what they were supposed to do and got good at it, there was a change, and that caused churn and problems. Each framework created a specific problem rather than solving what the teams needed. The practitioners became like hammer-wielding carpenters, walking around looking for nails to hit, pushing frameworks and specifics of frameworks into situations that didn't need them. The only thing that consistently added value were the principles of good product management. SAFe, Less, SVPG all have very similar ways that they talk about product management. And understanding user needs, focusing on outcomes, writing clear, concise work items, having the team communicate and collaborate around those work items was great. But everything else, the specifics, the roles, the meetings, everything else felt like wedging a square peg into a round hole. The problem with the Agile dogma, or any kind of dogma, is it tries to fit every situation into a predefined mold. True agility is about adapting. The framework should also be flexible. And in a lot of these certification-driven frameworks, it's just not. So I heard recently Simon Sinek and Trevor Noah talking with each other on Simon's podcast, I believe. And Simon Sinek tells this great story about a salesman who always had 2 pairs of shoes in his customer's hand, never 3 pairs of shoes, never 1 pair of shoes, always 2 pairs of shoes. And really, it made the customer think that the decision was binary, and it eliminated optionality. And that might be a great selling tool, but it's not a great way to really have human connections and build things together as teams where we have to think alike and build a solution that works all together. Optionality and getting things out is what Agile is all about. And we really need to think through how much do we want to remove people's optionality from how they're doing things. Frameworks really, if they're very rigid frameworks, remove that optionality. We want some things maybe to be standardized so we can have leadership understand where things are no matter what they're looking at. But how much do we want that rigidity pushed down to the folks who need to be creative? All right, I know that was a lot. Let's shift gears here. Let's talk about how Agile practitioners can evolve. If the business of Agile coaching and frameworks and certifications is slowing down, where does that leave all of us who have been doing this for a few years, if not more? Really, one of the things that I see is the emergence of product ops. That was a very practical evolution for where Agile practitioners can use skills that they've learned and have from being Agile practitioners and do something different that is more in line with the products that they're supporting. It's a great fit for folks who don't want to be tied to one product in an organization, but want to support delivery teams. and those teams that are delivering the value in multitudes of ways. It could be, how do we link sales, marketing, and product together so that we're developing what sales is what sales is selling and what marketing is advertising? How do we do that? How do we get those plans together? Is there 3 different roadmaps and each one's doing their own roadmap of where the product goes and everybody has a different idea? Or is there a single source of truth that has different reporting vectors for each specific organization? That's something that a product ops person can spend a lot of time working with those different teams, those dispersed teams, and figure out how to get this thing working for all of them. Focus on outcomes over frameworks. I know we've been talking about frameworks and they're bad. They're not all bad, and they have their place for sure. But move beyond making sure Agile fits and move towards delivering the value directly with teams. This is great. It's like transitioning into product management. So is there an opening on your product team to work and actually write the epics? I know that a lot of us as coaches really start to understand the businesses that we're coaching, and that could be an easy transition. DevOps is another thing. Is there a DevOps leadership position or something in operations that you can move to help those teams with your Agile knowledge but actually deliver the value? Recently, I had a friend who was coaching a team, and he was adding value at the same time, like directly to the product. And they offered him a job to just start working on the product as a leader in their engineering department. It was a great move for him. He was super stoked about it. And I think that's one of those things that a lot of us, I know I've talked to people about going native as a coach. Like, don't get too close to the team. You need the team to trust you. You need to be able to influence the team. But you don't want to be part of the team, because then you can stop getting them to do the framework and start helping them just figure out value. And then the framework becomes irrelevant and you become irrelevant in the minds of the coach. This is one of those things where that might be a natural transition. And if you are in a position where you can be native, then you can transition into an open role there if they have one. Lastly, support systems, not just the teams. This is one of those things, like, not just the tooling, which is a great place for product ops to start enabling entire organizations to function smoothly, but what are the processes for planning? What are the processes for budgeting? How do we onboard into products? How do we offboard into products? How do we integrate across marketing, sales, delivery, and support? How do we get customer insights from support back into that sales pipeline? How can we monetize new feature requests that come through that way? Helping that whole system, every place inside of the product lifecycle that we may have an impact, is a great way to be valuable and use your Agile skills. I have a former colleague who's also my beautiful bride, was an Agile coach for a while, and she started pivoting into a product ops role over time over the last 2 or 3 places she was at. She supported multiple product teams by creating alignment across roadmaps, improving cross-functional collaboration, bringing folks together, working on training, building out product training and things like that will really impact the way that they deliver value without being tied to a specific Agile framework. It enabled her to be creative and be a leader without having to really focus in on, is this part of the framework? Is this in the playbook? She could really just pick and choose from the best places around that had the things that are going to enable her business to go. She also is a lot like me in the regard that, like, she wasn't tied to a single product, so she was learning across all the different vectors of the business. She could use her Agile skills, obviously, to make a broader impact, to deliver things quick and get that feedback and create customer surveys and get all that stuff, and build a system for that organization that works across all of the different functions. Agile practitioners like her who embrace roles like product ops will stay relevant because they focus on enabling outcomes, not enforcing frameworks or the playbook. Here's the bottom line, folks. I don't think Agile's dead, but I do think that Agile dogma is holding us practitioners back from evolving to the next step. For those of you like me who are practitioners, focus on getting to the outcomes. How can I help my teams deliver value? And focus less on the specifics of the framework and the rules and the playbook. Explore different roles that may be something that you can do, like product ops, DevOps leader, Product manager. We have these skills. We came from somewhere. We were a developer before. We were a project manager before. We were, a product person before. And that's how we got into this coaching role. There's a chance you can go back and really start being part of the system and not focus on the framework. And remember, agility isn't just about rules at all. It's about delivering value to the customer. The future of Agile practitioners isn't about facilitating these ceremonies and forcing people to work in a playbook. It's about enabling outcomes, solving problems, and staying adaptable in changing landscapes. These are the things we coach our teams on, and maybe we need to start coaching ourselves on them. Bottom line is, Agile isn't going anywhere, but I believe the business of Agile, the frameworks, the certifications, the transformations, they're going to be evolving, and they may be evolving to extinction. Practitioners, we need to pivot. We need to get beyond that dogma and focus on roles that are going to help enable the outcomes. Product ops, DevOps leadership, engineering leadership, those are examples of roles that leverage the Agile principles while staying relevant in modern organizations. What do you all think? Is Agile dead? Is the business of Agile slowing down? How do you see Agile practitioners evolving? Share your thoughts and stories with us on social media, email, comment on the podcast, whatever you'd like. Next time, we're going to be talking about the tension between annual financial planning and agility. How do you stay responsive and adaptive when your organization is locked into a rigid yearly budget? Is being locked into a yearly rigid budget some way that can facilitate agility? We'll explore why this tension exists, how to create practical solutions for balancing the two. Don't miss it. Looking forward to seeing you there. Thanks for listening to Pragmagilism. Remember, tools not rules, outcomes not traditions. Be pragmatic, not dogmatic. See you next time.